Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I like to discuss the latest of Tory rats deserting the sinking ship as Dominic Raab announces how he will not be standing at the next general election. This is actually not the best news for anti-Tories and especially the Liberal Democrats, however. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So we have had a brand new scandal break about Braverman. You may have thought I'd be talking about that. I did say there'd be another one, didn't I? There may be even more. Although it might be that tomorrow it comes to a head and she just resigns. The speeding issue was always going to be the first wave. Someone thinks it's time for her to be gone. But I'm not going to talk about that until tomorrow afternoon. And that is because, first of all, I don't want to talk about her all the time. But second, because I think there's every chance this could be a bit of a topic of choice at PMQ. So I'll talk about it in the PMQ's video tomorrow, unless something really blows up. So let's discuss other things in the meantime, because there has been other news today. There's a couple of Tory MPs, and additional Tory MPs say they're not standing at the next election. For every election, there's always MPs who say they're not going to be standing. It's because they're in their 70s, they're going to retire, whatever. But there's been quite a lot of Conservative MPs who you might thought would still want to carry on, but are standing down. And another one was Dominic Rob. He said he's not going to be seeking re-election next year because something family. Well, has he only just realised he has a family? Just like he only found out that Dover existed when he became Brexit Secretary. I mean, I know I don't regard him as very bright, but this is next level. The actual reason Raab is stepping down is, of course, the same reason so many other Conservative MPs are stepping down, because he does not want to face the hard slog of a general election campaign, because it is a hard slog, only to have to stay up until 3 o'clock in the morning to be told to get on his bike. And as I said in the introduction, this is not good news for the Lib Dems. You may imagine I'm saying that because they will be denied his scalp. You know, obviously the changes are coming. There's going to be some big losses at the next election. And of course, the Lib Dems would like to be the ones to bring down Dominic Raab. But that's not it. I think they've got a bigger scalp potentially in their sights. I'll get onto that in a bit. But let's look at the MRP polling for Raab's constituency of Esher and Walton. Now, this is a constituency, like quite a lot of constituencies, which is having its boundaries redrawn as part of the Tories' gerrymandering attempts. But the proposed changes actually have no help to the Conservatives, because if you look at the latest MRP predictions, the boundary changes actually give the Lib Dems a better chance of winning the seat. However, you would still look at this and think, well, it still looks like quite a safe Tory seat there, Phil. But there are two things which actually make this seat a prime target for the Liberal Democrats, despite the polling. Or there were anyway. There's now one, but it's still a big one. So first of all, although there will be no formal pact, Labour and the Lib Dems long ago agreed not to waste their resources on unwinnable seats, which was basically their way of saying they're not going to get in each other's way in each other's target seats for the general election, with one exception of a seat in Sheffield, which is between Labour and the Liberal Democrats, right? But in terms of all the target seats for Labour and all the Lib Dem seats that are against the Conservatives, Labour aren't going to get in the Lib Dems' way, Lib Dems are not going in Labour's way, which means that although the MRP suggests that Labour would get just over 20% of the vote, there will be no national Labour resources dedicated to campaign there. And as long as the local Labour Party have their eyes on the prize of booting the Tories out, and there is evidence they will do because of the last election, they may well decide to give the Lib Dems a very wide berth. Action like this can tilt the result away from the polling prediction, more in favour of the Lib Dems in this case. So in reality, we may find, with some subtle local encouragement to dump the anti-Tory vote onto the Lib Dem candidate, it actually looks much more in the Lib Dems' favour. And again, if you go back to the 2019 election results, so what you can see is 2019, Labour lost a lot of their votes. In fact, it collapsed. They lost 3/4 of the votes, or the vote share that they had in 2017, which suggests there was an awful lot of tactical voting, successful tactical voting, that went on in an effort to oust Raab at the time. Well, I expect even more tactical voting at the next election, because people really now have a sense of a change. It's time to kick the Tories out. The second benefit for the Lib Dems was that Dominic Raab is the sitting MP and under normal circumstances would have been their candidate. Now, given that he is as unpopular as he is thick, he was a huge asset for the Lib Dems. In fact, although I have no doubt that Raab has actually decided to stand down himself because he doesn't want his arse kicking, his ego can't really take losing. He'd like to be able to say, well, I would have won the seat, but, I couldn't bother to stand. I would not be surprised if local Conservatives hadn't maybe sort of nudged him into it anyway. I certainly can't imagine they begged him to reconsider when he told them of his intention to retire. Because something we should consider when looking at the MRP outlook on a seat-by-seat basis. It's a pretty good system. It's based on sound logic, and more importantly, it has proven itself in the last 2 general elections on the overall national picture. But it cannot take account of unusual behaviour at the local level or the candidate. And actually, there's going to be a real stern test for MRP at the next election, because in the last 2 elections, it didn't cause a change of government, whereas in the next one it is expected to. So a good candidate can add value, and an unpopular candidate can be vote negative. So all these sort of local issues can buck the trend of the polling. Local cooperation, or at the very least a non-aggression from Labour in the general election, will help the Lib Dems move the seat into marginal territory. Going up against Raab would have given a further boost, which would have meant that the odds were, despite this polling, actually strongly in favour of the Lib Dems. The fact that the Tories will now have the chance to select a locally popular, or at least credible candidate, means that the Lib Dems lose that boost. Remains to be seen whether the Conservatives do that, but the Lib Dems have lost an asset. It will still be a Lib Dem target seat, of course, because there is every chance that Lib Dems are still favourites, but Raab was an asset for the Lib Dems, not his own party. So this decision to stand down actually technically gives the Tories a better chance. But in terms of scalps, so they will have been denied the Raab scalp, but, I'll be honest, I don't think that was their main one that they should be focusing on anyway. I'll tell you what I think will be their biggest and best. See, there are a few things which have to happen to set this all up, I have to say. Very much speculative at the moment. Let us suppose that Boris Johnson gets his big suspension after Margaret Ferrier was given a 30-day suspension for a serious offence, but still less so than Johnson's. I would suggest it is now harder for the Privileges Committee to give a token punishment to Johnson and in any way claim to be credible. So let's say Johnson is suspended for 10 days or more. That can trigger a recall petition. The recall petition will absolutely pass, no problem. So he's no longer an MP. There'll be a by-election. He can stand in that by-election. I don't think he will. I don't think he wants to lose. I don't think that does much for not only his ego, but his mystique as an election winner, right? So I think he pretends to sulk for a few months. No, I'm not standing. There, he's disgraceful. Which are absolutely disgraceful. I'm leaving politics. And he goes off and sulks for a few months. Incidentally, the place he'll go and sulk is Henley, his old seat, a place where he's just paid a few million quid in cash, I gather, for a mansion with a moat. And, interestingly enough, a seat in need of a candidate. Henley needs a candidate because their current MP has announced his intention to stand down. So they need a candidate. Johnson used to be their candidate. Johnson pops up. He's gone there to sulk, right? A few months later, he goes, I've done sulking now. I'd like to return to politics. Oh, my old seat of Uxbridge Jerusalem. Oh, that's gone now. There's a Labour MP there. Oh, I can't be bothered going back there. I live here now. I should really be a local candidate. I live here now. I should be Henley's candidate. So Henley go, oh, Boris, you're the best. So they make him their candidate. Now, if you look at the MRP for Henley, it's a right old mess. The anti-Tory vote split 3 ways. So straight away, if the local parties have got any sense, they will make way for the one best place to win this seat. They will still put candidates up, of course, but should ideally not campaign aggressively against the main anti-Tory challenger. Focus the campaign against Johnson. Now, although the polling looks like Labour are the best place to challenge, purely by dint of the fact that it was second place, this is not likely correct. There are a lot of seats like this where Labour come second because they get the left-wing vote, or most of the left-wing vote, but in an essentially right-wing conservative area, conservative with a small c maybe, the Lib Dems have the most potential to take Tory votes. It's a little bit like North Shropshire in 2021. Labour came second in, they were well ahead of the Lib Dems in the 2019 general election, but everyone knew that Labour's potential to get votes was limited. There's no way they could have beaten the Conservatives, but the Lib Dems had much greater potential. So Labour and the Greens go easy. The Lib Dems mount a huge campaign there, make it a real key target. Boris Johnson, despite being popular with the party, is toxic to the general public. Now, if that is also the case in places like Henley now, it means some Conservative voters will go, oh, I can't really vote for Johnson. So they just either don't vote at all, they stay away on polling day, or they switch to the Lib Dems. The combination of concentrating the anti-Tory vote and Boris the voter repellent Johnson being on the Tory ticket could well be more than enough for the Lib Dems to record a famous victory. That would be their prize scalp. It would also have the effect of making Johnson look ridiculous. Too scared to fight for a marginal constituency, so he flees to a safe Tory seat and then loses that anyway. Spectacular. So Raab standing down, it's not denying us a Portillo moment. I don't think Raab should be considered important enough to fill that role. His ship jumping simply denies the Lib Dems a strategic boost in one of their target seats, but the result should still be, hopefully, Lib Dem win. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.